Dear participants, hope so far so good. I welcome you all to yet another fabulous. We all have fed up with the real world right now due to COVID-19 situation. I think we have to accept this. In this crunch time, why don't we take a tour to another world? Any guesses, guys? Which world we are talking about? Yeah, it's cyber world. As tour guides accompany visitors on tours, today in this tour, in this session, we have with us online Dr. Anil Kumar KN, Associate Professor, SJCE, Mysuru, to guide all of us to knowing the cyber world and its challenges. Dr. Anil Kumar is a well-known faculty in this part of the region for his work and initiatives he has undertaken at SJCE. He is a product of NIE, Mysore, having 2 decades of teaching experience. Recently, he was invited to Australia on an assignment. His areas of interests are machine learning, sentiment analysis, NLP, and cyber security. On behalf of CS department, I extend a cordial welcome to him to this session and also thank him for accepting our invitation. So once again, hearty welcome to all of you online. So now it's over to Anil Kumar to begin the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Paramesh, for having me here for this particular workshop. And okay, so let me just go to the presentation mode so that it will be very clear. Yeah, okay, so is that visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay, right. So today I'll be taking you to a different area or different topic, which is of utmost important, or probably very crucial in the current scenario, and it's called as cybercrime. And probably as academicians, we should be in a position to know how we can actually contribute to the nation by in whatever ways that we can. As academicians, we have to we can contribute by finding the sources, finding or developing some kind of tools that can help to analyze, detect, and to prevent these kind of crimes. So in this regard, so I'll be taking you to a different journey. So probably most of us would be aware of what exactly is cybercrime, because having to know that most of the participants attending this particular workshop, they are faculty members, and I also understand there are some students as well. So having to know this, having to know that you have some kind of background on the computation, you have some background knowledge about what exactly is cyber and cyber security and cyber crime. But still, I'll be taking you to a different, a kind of a domain which requires utmost importance, okay, which requires some kind of work that needs to be addressed. And probably at the end of this particular presentation, so I'll also highlight to you of the various research avenues that we can contribute in whatever ways that we have. For example, if you're working on networking, so what kind of projects or what kind of research that you can take with respect to from the networking perspective. And if in case you're talking about what is known as say, for example, if you're talking about the passive component, like, for example, the cyber bullying, or you can call it as something like hate speech that is quite rampant across the social media. So how you can contribute so that you can address those kind of issues through your research work. So this is what we will be focusing on today's, probably the talk. Okay, so the agenda of today would be, I'll be talking about the cybercrime. I'll be talking about the reasons for cybercrime. I'll be talking about cyber criminals. Basically, we need to know the profile of a cyber criminal. Like, for example, how do you actually differentiate me and somebody else? Because all of them look alike, but there should be some kind of profile. Criminals do have some kind of profiles, and we need to understand who they are, how do they operate. So some kind of information on cyber criminals, and also the mode and manner of committing a crime, the classification of cybercrime, and we'll probably go through some of the case studies that was reported in literature, and also we'll see how this cybercrime can be prevented, and also the challenges that we have at hand in order to address or prevent these kind of cybercrimes. And ultimately, I'll be concluding with what is known as the research avenues that we can, as faculty members or as researchers, we can, or we can undertake. Now, let's start with something like, everybody today, they are connected. And if you are familiar with the computer networks, computer networks have facilitated interconnection of too many systems across the world. And when the too many systems are interconnected, when you call it as the internet or you call it as networks, these too many systems have facilitated people to communicate from one node to the other, from one continent to the other continent. And on top of it, you have so many layers that's been added, so that all the heterogeneity, all the complexity that the network can offer is completely masked from the user. So basically, what's happened is, on top of the on the top of the network, you have many layers, and these layers have completely facilitated the end user to use the net in a very simple and easy to use manner. And these layers also have contributed to another world, and that another world is what we call as the virtual world. And this virtual world is what we call as the cyberspace. And this cyberspace, it's quite possible that anybody sitting here can virtually visit the US and then come back. So this is the facility that you have been provided with, thanks to what is called as the evolution of computer networks, or because of the rapid growth in what is known as the internet technologies. And also it's true that we have cyberspace, and this cyberspace has made everybody to be present on the cyberspace. And that is because the technology is rapidly changing or rapidly growing. There are different technologies that are available that helps you to get connected very fast, to use those resources very fast, to share resources very fast, and to transact very fast. So this is all made possible by using what is known as the information technology. And added to this, you have what is known as the different components also coming into picture. For example, you talk about something called the microprocessor chips. The microprocessor chips, according to some survey, the microprocessor chips is actually doubling every 12 to 18 months. That is the speed of the microprocessor. So the speed of the microprocessor is actually increasing every 12 to 18 months. So that gives an advantage of faster computation. And to add to it, you have also something called the storage. So people were initially using probably in KBs, and then it went on to MBs, and now people are talking about something called TBs and beyond. So the storage is also increasing, just like anything, it's phenomenally increasing. And also, one of the component that is of utmost important or utmost importance is what we call as the bandwidth, or simply put as the internet speed, or some people also call it as a data, right? So the bandwidth is also, initially, I don't remember, initially when I'm talking about 1998, 1999, where we used to have some kind of a dial-up form of internet connection. So when we used to have a dial-up form of internet connection, the bandwidth used to be very, very limited, and we were difficult. The email, if the email was working fine, that was the big thing then. Now today, if you look at it, every household today have at least minimum 40 Mbps of bandwidth. So that means it has become so affordable that every household has some kind of bandwidth. And to add to it, now every house has also they have switched the technology. Like previously, it was something like they used to have copper wires, and now you have fibers connecting to your houses. So we call it as FTH, fiber to home service. So all this has made the technology so adaptable and usable that everybody 24 bar 7 they are physically or virtually present in what is called as the cyber world. Now let's get to some statistics here. According to some statistics here, India ranks third in terms of highest number of internet users in the world after USA and China. So because of many are connected to the internet, and you can just imagine 24 bar 7 they are just connected. And in addition to this beautiful statistics, that is one of the very positive statistics, you have other statistics as well, which is of concern. For example, India secures a spot among the top 10 spam sending countries in the world along USA. So this is the flip side or the other side of being connected to the internet. So India secures one of the it secures top spot in top 10. So for sending spams across countries, that is one. And also, India was ranked among the top 3 countries to be affected by cybercrime. So that is also there. I mean, I think I can, if it's possible, I'll show you a demo where you can see that constantly every time there are attacks happening in real time to different countries, including India. And India, as this particular statistics tells you, it's one of the top 3 countries to be affected by cybercrimes. And also, it is true that India ranks. This again. This is one of the statistics that was available in one of the online site. India ranks among the worst in the world of cybersecurity. When I say ranks the worst, in the sense, it is ranked number 15. In the sense, like the amount of measures that could have been there is not very much there. So probably more efforts and more technology and more things, more policies should be there in order to make sure that India is definitely out of this particular ranking. So as of now, one of the reports says that India ranks among the worst. That means it's ranked 15th when it comes to least number of cyber security technology to be employed, least some kind of least cyber security policies, and so on. And again, if you look at some statistics, what are the different types of cyber kind of disruptions that can happen with respect to cyber crime that can affect different industries, or what are the different types of what do you call as a cyber crimes that happens? Is something like, one is the common as you see, 57% is attributed to an attack called as phishing and social engineering. Phishing is basically, I think most of you would have known that it's something like a bait. So everybody, so you will receive some kind of a mail, and then you are asked to click on it, and then the moment you click on it, then it will take you to a different world, and there you get to feel that it's a genuine kind of a site that is asking you your credentials, and the moment you enter your credentials, and that's it. So your credentials would be stolen, and that's it. Social engineering, I think, it's a kind of an attack or a kind of a crime that's happening, especially during this COVID period time. There are instances. For example, I read in one of the magazine or in the newspaper online, one of the very popular app that we have today is especially for COVID-19 is the Setu app. Okay, so one of the very popular. Now, what the fraudsters, or what the people who are wants to commit crime, what they are doing is they have actually come out with a very similar looking kind of an app. very similar looking kind of an app related to very similar looking app of say to app. And what they have done is, they have added some things, and when that is downloaded, so when that's downloaded, it will ask some kind of credentials which is not normally asked by that particular the original app. So the normal users, will think that, this is the app that is asking some kind of credentials or some kind of
Sir, the internet disconnected ಆಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience caused, and there was some. Sorry for the inconvenience caused, and there were some network issues, and as a result, yeah, as I was giving you statistics, 50% of the organizations reportedly affected in 2017. This is the statistics that we had in 2017. According to this, 57% was, you know, related to something like phishing and social engineering, and 41% was with respect to malware, and the 30% was with respect to some kind of spear attacks, and then you have 20% that is 20% is because of denial of service, and 19% is because of some kind of an out of date software, a ransomware. So today, internet has become something like a part of everyone's life. So we are basically living both the physical life as well as the virtual life. And to this, cybercrime has also become a very serious threat. And the governments across the world, the police department, the intelligence units, everybody has understood, have taken this as a very serious issue and have started working on it. So they have their own, they have started coming out with policies so as to make sure that when you are online, things can be safe and secure. But still, there need to be a lot of efforts that has to go in order to make this happen in reality. So cybercrime is defined as the crimes committed on the internet using the computer as a tool or computer as a victim. So therefore, hence we say computer as a tool and computer as a target. So the 5 most cyber attacked industries are: the first one is the healthcare. Healthcare segment is the most important. Why? Because it will have the records of many of the persons who have been either admitted or have gone for some kind of checkups. So they have data there. Manufacturing sectors, financial services, the government services, and transportations. So these are the 5 important and the 5 most cyber attacked industries. Why the cybercrime happens? Cybercrime happens because of different reasons, and according to the statistics published, 42% is because of our own issues. For example, it could be something like configurations that we did not set it right, or we downloaded applications that was not verified, not authenticated, and when we try to use those kind of applications, it will definitely result in some kind of issues. And then you have 6% in terms of vulnerable code. When you say vulnerable code, coding is very interesting, and coding can be either simple or complex. When you have a complex code, many of us will try to give up, saying that, why do we understand those code? But that code, which is very complex, would be understood by a very good coder, and that coder will understand the vulnerability of it, and if that has to be exploited, so those coders will exploit it and use it accordingly. So 6% is because of the code that we write. 31% is because of the end users errors. It could be something like, the crime can happen because of any reasons. The crime can happen because of any reasons. It could be an act committed by maybe a person working in the data center. It could be an act committed by an employer. It could be an act committed by a system analyst, anybody. So that 31% would be because of somebody doing it. Okay, so it could be anybody. So 6% would be a targeted attack. For example, recently you might have read in the newspaper that Iran nuclear site was actually attacked, and there was some fire at the nuclear site. and they blamed Israel for some kind of a cyber attack. Now you can just imagine this could be an example. We don't know whether Israel has done it, but this was a statement that was issued in the paper. So this can be an example of something like targeting. So somebody targeting one nation, targeting the other nation. Then you have 15%. 15% we don't know why this particular attack happens. So this particular figure gives you an idea. This particular slide gives you an idea of the vulnerability that exists, the different types of vulnerability that exist every day. Okay, if in case you notice very carefully, the CERT, that is Computer Emergency Response Team of India, they have identified certain vulnerabilities. It could be in terms of the VMware products, it could be in terms of Google Android phones, or it could be smart devices, or in also all such devices. They have identified, and they're pointing in their website of the different vulnerabilities that exist, and that needs to be addressed immediately. Otherwise, that can be used by the attacker. At the same time, there is another phishing campaign. That this is what I was talking about. One of the most popular app that you have is what we call as the Arogya Setu app, that is launched by the government in this particular time of crisis. It's also understood that there are people who have come out with a very similar kind of an app, very similar kind of an Arogya Setu, similar kind of an app. And in this, what they have done is they have added some more things that is used to extract user credentials. So hence, the government is cautioning people about these kind of apps. So hence, when this kind of apps is downloaded, and when the user, without understanding the genuinity of that particular app, gives up all the credentials, then they will be they will fall prey to this particular attack. So what's the difference between the conventional and the cyber crime? So there's no difference between crime. The conventional crime or the cyber crime is the same. But one of the differences that the people talk about is the medium that is used for the crime in the case of cyber crime. Okay, the medium. Say, for example, it could be the somebody sitting here and committing a crime in US, somebody sitting here and committing a crime in Australia. So the medium. So they use the system, and they use the public network or the internet for doing that particular crime. So the medium involvement, the medium is one of the difference maker here between the conventional crime and what is known as the cyber crime. And according to one of the definitions that is put, okay, so this is again one of the perspective. It may not be completely true in all sense, but one of the perspective is cyber crime is more on protecting individuals and families as they are online. Okay, so the cyber crime is basically on protecting individuals and families as they are online. And when we talk about security is more concerned of protecting government and corporate networks, so that it makes the hackers very difficult to find and exploit vulnerabilities. So according to some statistics, or probably you might have come across this particular news article sometime back. This was one of the article that was published some time back, which says that 4 months and 32 crores. That means you can just imagine. So in 4 months, 32 crores of worth of rupees was somehow tricked or stolen. So because of cyber issues or cyber attack. And it also gives you another another newspaper article talks about saying that so cyber criminals are trying to look at places, look at locations, look at devices which are vulnerable, and they find, and the study says that 1985, that is 1985 attempts have been made per minute, and that is on Windows machines, and it's far higher than Android machines or any other operating systems. So this can be true with any operating systems. Okay, Windows operating systems, they are in fact coming out with a regular patch every now and then. But what we would do, we would just not notice the end of life of those operating systems, and we continue to use those operating systems without understanding the risk associated with it, right? So when the Microsoft announces that this particular Windows is no more supported, and you have to upgrade it to some other operating system or some other, say for example Windows 10 or so on, so we need to do it. If in case we're not, so what happens is there is a vulnerability that is existing because there is no service provided in the operating system, and there is a vulnerability existing, and this vulnerability can be exploited by the attacker in order to enter into the system or into a network and use the resources and use things or data in a way that should not be done. And again, one more report says that Maharashtra, Delhi, West Bengal, these are the very vulnerable states that are prone to what is known as the cyber attacks. Vulnerable states that are prone to cyber attacks. Then you have something like cities at risk. This is again one more article which says that these are the cities which are vulnerable to cyber attacks. And if you look at it very carefully, you will see that Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Kolkata, all the major cities, these are the cities that are prone to what is known as the cyber attack. And this, I think, is one of the articles that was published very recently, which says that it's published, it appeared in 2020, July 1st, which says that everybody has somehow, working from home, and they are using what is known as Google or any other web browsers, and they use many extensions. And when they use many extensions, for example, it could be conversion of PDF, a Word to PDF extension, or it could be something like attendance, extension that we try to do. There is a warning that's given by the CERT India, that is the Computer Emergency Response Team of India, which says that you need to be very careful because the apps that we are downloading, they are bypassing the security checks of Google extensions. So somehow they are bypassing it, and there's a possibility that they are intruding your system and exploring the data in your system. So this is one of the issue that was highlighted by CERT, and it's also one of the point to be of concern. So I just thought I'll be showing you some live attacks, but if in case it's not possible because I need to navigate from one window to the other, what you can do is you can just maybe at your own time, you can just use these two URLs. Okay, just use these two URLs and try. You can click on them and you can see how live attack is happening. It gives you an estimate that the amount of attacks that are happening from different nations and how many attacks are happening towards India. So it gives you an idea to know how cyber attacks is quite rampant and why people are focusing, why people are concerned, why people or the governments, especially the government, is concerned and working all the way in order to make sure that these attacks are prevented and they do not happen or hamper any of our infrastructures. I think you can just have a look at these two URLs because I'm not able to play this right now. I wanted to show you live, but it requires me to open another window and then present that window. It will be of it will take some time. So I would like you to just make a note of this URL and try them. Now, let's talk about something like the reasons for cybercrime. Now, before we understand that, why do we have law? We have law because human beings are vulnerable. Human beings are vulnerable, so we need some kind of rules to protect them. And very similarly, when we apply that to cyberspace, we say that people using computers and people who are online, they're also vulnerable, and we need to protect them. So that's why we need to have some kind of rules to protect them against some kind of cybercrime. Now, following are the reasons for vulnerability of computers. Why? Because most of us would be using either computers or mobile phones to be online. So here it is mentioned as computers, but it could be also your mobile phones, or it could be any other devices that you are connecting with to the online world. So the vulnerability exists because those devices that you use can store data, and it will help you to access those data as well as access others data. And somehow the applications, the programs which are very complex are completely hidden from you. There is always some kind of negligence and loss of evidence. So because of loss of evidence, in the sense, yes, whenever there's some kind of crime happens, especially online, we'll not be able to understand what to preserve, what not to preserve. Unlike your conventional crime, for example, if when a crime happens in a conventional manner, say for example a theft at a particular place or location, so there is a crime scene. So there's a crime scene, and we know for sure what to touch, what not to touch. So you know everything. But unlike the conventional crime, in the online crime, what happens is we do not know actually what we need to preserve, what we need to keep record of, so that those clues or cues can be used by the investigators for finding the source of crime. Now let's talk about the cyber criminals. Following are the categories of cyber criminals. Criminals can be of any range. So criminals can be of any range, any age, and they can be of any nationalities. So it could be children, or it could be teenagers, or it could be men in their men in their age group of maybe something like 30 to 60 or 30 to 70. It could be anybody, right? So it could be children, it could be the teenagers, or it could be adult men, anybody. And it could be something like organized hackers. Organized hackers in a sense, there are states, they are sponsored by states. For example, China has a cyber army, Pakistan has a cyber army, Iran has a cyber army, US has a cyber army. So that means whether they are officially stating it or not, we don't know, because nobody will say that we have an official cyber hackers group. We don't know that. But in the press or in the media, we get to hear that most of these hackers from different nations, they are backed by the state. So that means they are backed by those countries, and the objective of these hackers is to disrupt the services of their opponent countries. Say for example Pakistan, probably Pakistan's cyber hackers, they are very active, and their target would be many of the Indian government sites. And you would have read in the newspaper that many of the government sites, websites were defaced by some kind of contents which is not it was not which is not conducive to the working of our nation, right? So therefore the target is basically trying to send across different messages. So otherwise you also have some people called as hackers, not concerned, they are independent, they are they're doing their own job, and some are doing it for stealing some money. They are working for somebody, but they are independent, working for somebody. They are doing all the wrong things. And also they have some people who are actually part of the law, trying to understand the vulnerability of the system. Whenever there is some kind of a product that is released, so many of the companies, many of the security agencies, they use them in order to identify the vulnerabilities. So there are people who are either on this side or on the other side. And very importantly, there is the large set of group which will become the cyber criminals, or which will turn to cyber criminals, and those are the discontented employees. Discontent employees, the employees who are not happy with the boss, the employees who are not happy with the administration, the employees who are not. So these are the employees who somehow become cyber criminals by stealing data, by disclosing the private information. Say for example, in some case, a bank employee or insurance employee, So he actually copied the entire, the user data or the customer's data or the client data, and made this data available to the entire public. And he offered this particular data for sale in the dark web. So these are the employees, who are not happy with some kind of an administration. So they actually become cyber criminals. So, what are the modes and manners in which the cyber crimes are committed? So, the modes and manners are basically, I'll be talking about each of them very quickly. One of them is unauthorized access to computer systems or networks, and then theft of information contained in electronic form. Then you have something called email bombing. Then you have something called data diddling. Then you have something called salami attack. Then you have something called denial of service attack. Then you have virus and worms attack. Then you have Trojan attacks. Then you have webjacking. These are the different types of cyber crimes that are committed. Let me just go through them very quickly. So when you talk about something like unauthorized access to computer systems or networks or hacking, I think most of us understand this. When somebody uses the credentials of others, how do they get the credentials? We don't know. Maybe they've obtained it in an illegal manner. So they've obtained it. They obtained the what is known as the credentials in an illegal manner, and they try to use it. And in the course, they have disrupted. Probably they have taken some data. They have disrupted the services of that particular computer or the website or the server. By doing so, I think they are trying to commit a crime. So one of the example that I can just that was reported in the newspaper was in 2007. I think this kind of news you are probably reading it on a day-to-day basis. One of the websites of government of Maharashtra was completely hacked by unknown persons, and it was defaced. That means the entire page was written something different. So this kind of attack, basically somebody got into the system, and then once they got into the system, they tried to alter the contents, modify the contents, and change the contents. So this is one kind of a crime that happens. The other one is something called the theft of information contained in electronic form, right? So that means you have information. We all have informations. One of the very important informations that we have is most of us are using Google, right? Most of us are using Google, and we have given a lot of data on Google. So we have our probably, I don't know, we have our Aadhaar card on Google, we have ID cards on Google, we have we have our documents. All these documents are available in Google. Most of us, because it's very easy to retrieve, and whenever somebody asks for producing those documents, we simply download it and just take a printout or then share the soft copy. So what we do is we try to keep those data in a third party service such as Google or Yahoo. Now, whenever somebody tries to, we know that these websites offer maximum protection. We know that, but still, because of some vulnerability that exists, it's quite possible that there may be an issue where the entire data would be stolen. And once they are stolen, so everything, that means the complete history of your data is stolen. And when that is stolen, your identity is stolen. When your identity is stolen, so somebody can just fake that it could be you, or somebody can fake to be you and present himself or herself elsewhere with those credentials. So that is something like an identity theft. So because of the data that we are making it available. So somebody stealing those data and giving it to somebody, and that somebody can take your role and my role, and they can walk out saying that it's me and you. One of the recent articles in that says that on the dark web, there are around 15 billion stolen details that are on sale. 15 billion details. So that means we don't know. It could be your data, it could be my data, and it could be anybody's data. So these data are available online and for somebody to purchase, right? So very similarly, Yahoo and Uber, those are the two very important services, service providing companies. They also have reported that they have lost amount of information of the users because of some kind of security breach. Then there is something called email bombing. Email bombing refers to what? Email bombing refers to sending a large amount of emails to a victim or to a particular target. Or it could be something like a teacher and a student. So every student sending a lot of emails to a particular teacher, and ultimately what happens is the inbox of the teacher will be overflowing, and what happens is subsequent genuine mails that are meant to be the teacher will never find its place in that particular inbox. So in by doing so, what one can achieve is, probably they are disrupting the services of a particular teacher, right? So the emails are not received in a proper manner, and at the same time, the mail servers also can it also render the mail servers to something like into a crash state. So there is a typical example that was reported in one of the newspaper, and this particular case was something like a foreigner and a Shimla housing board. Now, what happened here is a foreigner was staying in Shimla. Shimla is basically one of the tourist place in India, and most of the foreigners, they tend to spend most of the time there in Shimla. And one of the foreigner who was staying for a very long time somehow decides to purchase some kind of a land or a house. And but unless he has some kind of clearance, because he's a foreigner, and how can he purchase a property in India and all that? There's some kind of clearance. You need to have some kind of clearance. So Simla Housing Board rejected this particular offer of a foreigner to buy an house. And in turn, what happened is the foreigner was so frustrated that he caused what is known as an email service bomb. So that means he actually created a situation or instances that sent a number of emails to Simla Housing Board, server, and causing the server to crash. So this ultimately Simla Housing Board reported this matter, and only after investigating, they came to know that this was the handiwork of this particular foreigner. And when it was inquired, the reason that he gave was this: because he was not offered to buy what is known as the house or a land, because of which he did this. Now, this was one of the case of what is known as email bombing. Then you have something called data diddling. Data diddling is some kind of an activity that takes place, especially with data entry operators. You collect some money from different sources. It could be electricity board, it could be water board, or it could be somebody. And the actual amount that you collect and what you represent are two different things. So this kind of things were happening in the past, but this kind of an event or activity has somehow taken care to some extent, these days. So this is what we call as data diddling. Then you have something called a denial of service attack. So I think I don't have to tell you about denial of service attack. Denial of service attack is something like, flooding your computer with many requests, so that it'll just cause the computer to simply give up or crash. And this kind of attack has taken a major twist. Previously it was just one to one. Now what has happened is it is one with many. So that means many computers are attacking a single computer. So that means it's a distributed DOS. So you have many systems across the world that are attacking a particular target. So they send multiple, it could be packets or it could be messages, and leaving that particular system, the target system, not able to respond, leaving in a position not able to respond, ultimately breaking or crashing that particular server. So the major objective of the denial of service attack is to make a machine, not provide its service or make it ineffective. So that is one of the objective of DOS. Say, for example, if Facebook, when somebody attacks Facebook, with DOS, what happens is you'll try to connect and Facebook is not available. So you tried at once, and then maybe afternoon again you tried the Facebook is not up. After again evening also you tried, and the Facebook is not still available. So what will be your perception? The perception is, oh, probably this particular service offered from Facebook is not actually reliable and it's not available. So there's no point in going back to the Facebook. So the primary mode of denial of service attack is to create such mindset among the users, so that the user will know that this site is vulnerable and it cannot actually provide the requested service. So that is one of the main agenda for causing the DOS attack. The major agenda is something like making the system not provide its requested service. So you have websites like Amazon, CNN, Yahoo. All of these websites have undergone what is known as the DOS attack. Then you have something called the salami attack. This salami attack is an attack. I think this is wonderful, actually. I don't know, just imagine this kind of an attack usually happens in the financial sectors. How this happens is like this. Just imagine a bank employee can simply insert a certain code in the bank's application software. Okay, for example, because the banks usually will be providing with an application programming interfaces, so that the banks can use that for subsequent upgradation or writing their own modification to the existing procedures. So they have some kind of an application programming interfaces. So let's assume that there is a bank employee, and this particular bank employee writes a small code, and this code says that every month in the beginning, every month what we do is we pay our EMIs every month. If in case you have purchased a house or a car, every month in the beginning we'll pay what is known as the EMI. So he writes a very simple code that says that every month in the beginning, say on date 5 or 5th, every month 5th, you have to deduct only something like 5 rupees from every account. So when he writes a very simple when he writes a very simple program, so every month, small fraction of amount, say 5 rupees, or it could be 1 rupee, or it could be 2 rupees, they are deducted from every account of the bank, and they are getting deposited in one particular account. So this kind of an attack, also, if you look at it, the amount is very small, negligible, 1 rupee, 5 rupees, 2 rupees. And when we, probably sometimes we don't even get a message for those deductions. And if in case sometimes we think that it could be a service charge. So these are the amount that gets collected and then gets deposited in a particular account. So this kind of an attack is what we call as a salami attack. So this kind of an attack also did happen and get reported, and based on that, this term or salami was coined. Then you have something called the virus and the worm attacks. So I think we know all that. For example, one of the very popular viruses that we of late have seen is I love you virus and the ransomware virus. Ransomware is something like the moment it gets infected in system, it will ask you to enter some ransom or money. You need to credit money so that they will give you some key so as to encrypt the entire system, decrypt the entire system. So these are some kind of an attacks that have that takes place. Again, you have something called Trojan. Trojan is also one of the malware or unauthorized programs that gets inside authorized programs, and they actually do things which you're not supposed to do. Okay, so this is usually done by friends or family who know you actually, because somebody cannot come and implement a program in your desktop or in your laptop, or it could be your mobile phone. Somebody who's close to you are the ones who actually implement this kind of programs. Then there is something called webjacking. Webjacking is basically somebody actually taking control of your entire website. Okay, so how do they do it? Somebody got the password, and somebody got the password, and based on the password they hack the entire site and they change the password and making it so this is what we call as webjacking. So there was a case that was reported in US actually, And this case was something with respect to the nursery school children. Okay, nursery school children, they had a website, and the person who was managing the nursery website, like just like we have Eurokids, something like that, so very similarly, they had a children website, and suddenly they received one, the person, the webmaster receives a mail saying that you have to that this particular website has been hacked and it's been taken over by somebody, and if you want all the credentials to be given back, you need to pay some money. So the webmaster did not take it very seriously, because he thought it could be a joke, or it could be some kind of a prank that was played. So this particular webmaster continued to ignore the messages that was sent over the period of time, and ultimately what so happened is the hacksters, they actually changed the contents of the children website. In the sense, they did not change it to something like to anything that is something like that is not something that from children to adult. They did not go to something like adults. But what they did is they actually changed a few contents. For example, there was a message that says children should not play with piranha. Children should not play with piranha. Piranha is basically a kind of fish that is considered to be very carnivorous, right? Because so children should not play with piranha. So what these guys did is they changed the content to children can play with piranha. So what happened is ultimately when some children saw that particular content, and they actually played with the piranha and they got injured. So that's how the effect was there. So web tracking is a very serious and very dangerous kind of a scenario where somebody's website is taken care of, control, and then they change the contents, and that contents can definitely have effects on the end users. And the other security, crimes would be something like with respect to online gambling, or it could be intellectual property crimes, software piracies, copyright issues, and then email spoofing, forgery, and so on. Documents, forging the documents from one to the other, changing the images, morphing, and all these are some of the other issues that are related to cyber crimes. Then you have something called cyber defamation. Cyber defamation is something like somebody publishes an article which is quite against of a particular country, or it could be against a particular society. So that is what we call as cyber defamation. And then you have something called cyber stalking. Cyber stalking is something like somebody trying to follow you online. So somebody trying to follow you online, they're trying to understand what post messages, try to understand what you are, what's your interest, what is your interest, and trying to post messages and trying to reach everywhere that you go. Okay, so whichever sites that you visit, somebody trying to reach you in all those things. So there was one typical example, I think, that was reported by Delhi police, and this was something like the case of Seema Khanna. This Seema Khanna actually received a series of emails from a man asking to send explicit pictures or pay him 1 lakh rupees. So eventually she complained with the Delhi police, and the woman said that she started these mails in the 3rd week of November. And the police are investigating. I think I did not follow on this particular case, so I think the police are investigating, or maybe they speculated that one of the person, the accused, may be one of the person who will be very close to this victim. He knows more about the victim. So the process is still on, and and I'm not very sure whether this case has come to an end. And there is something called internet time theft. This is something like a situation I'm talking about. This was reported in 2000. So in 2000, internet was very big thing, and everybody, with the moment they had internet, it was a very big thing. And this case was reported then, and it's called as internet time theft. So that means today we are talking about data packs. So somebody using your data pack, because somebody knows that you have a username and password, and somebody using it, and somehow when they use the data pack, your data pack, the whatever the MBs or GBs, they get reduced. So a very similar case actually happened in Delhi at that time. I'm talking about 2000, and this is what we call as an internet time theft. Now, okay. So after getting to know something like what are the different type of cyber crimes that we have, let's try to broadly classify the cyber crimes into the three groups. One, it can be classified based against the individuals. It could be person or a property of individual, or against an organization, or it could be society at large. Now, when we talk about individuals, okay, so cyber crimes against individuals, what are the different ways of doing it? One is somebody harassing you through emails, cyber stalking, or somebody sharing some kind of obscene materials, or somebody talking about defamation, somebody spreading some kind of bad things or rumors, and some kind of unauthorized control to your system, indecent exposures, email spoofing, somebody taking assuming your identity, and then you have something called cheating and frauding. So these are some of the acts that are committed against an individual. And against individual property, yes, it could be somebody deliberately destroying your computer or a network. It could be through transmission of viruses, or somebody intruding into your network. I had a video of to show something about how this happens, but unfortunately, again, I need to visit a different window and then do a lot of things, so I'm not doing it. But okay, anyway, I think you may find very similar materials in the internet, so that you can use it and know how how somebody can attack a particular individual property. And then you have something like individual property crimes. For example, this has gained a lot of prominence because of what is known as home networking. Now, many of them are using, say, for example, Google Homes or Amazon Home networking. So it's reported that some kind of attacks are happening with respect to individuals' properties. Then you have internet theft time. So the same example that I just gave you in the previous slide. Against organization, yes, all of them holds very good. One, again, somebody trying to disrupt the services of an organization, somebody trying to possess the information in an unauthorized manner. Then you have something called the cyber terrorism. Now, of late, this has gained this has gained very notoriety because of number of cases that were reported, cyber terrorism, and then distribution of pirated software. So these are some of the acts that are considered as crime against organizations. If you talk about something like cybercrime against society at large, so it could be something like pornography, especially child pornography, fake news, trafficking, and financial crimes, sale of illegal articles. Suppose if in case, suppose you talk about something like sale of illegal articles, say something like online gambling, forgery, etc. These are some of the acts that are committed. These are some of the acts that are committed against society. Now, let me just give you some case studies. Probably this case studies will give you an idea the significance of these crimes. Okay, so probably understand. Probably you can understand, correlate. These are some of the things that we have been reading in the newspaper, and we think that this is something that's happening to somebody, but it could happen to any one of us, right? Let's take the first case. It's called as phishing from accounts. Sukhwinder Singh can never forget the day he checked his account online in late October last year. His account showed a deduction of 41,000, and he never had a clue how this money simply vanished. And investigation found out that this money was transferred to somebody, say Harpreet in Delhi. So I think these kind of instances we are actually happening to read, as well as getting to hear from many of our friends, right? But this is a kind of an attack. How does this happen actually? we all receive very similar mails, something like this. It looks so genuine, so genuine from Gmail, but unfortunately this could be something like this. So they will ask you something like, dear Gmail users, we are from Gmail, and we think that there's some problem in your account, and we need to verify your account. Kindly click here, and once you click here, then they'll ask you your username and password, and that's it. When you give your username and password, that username and password would be taken, and then that's it. So they use it, and they use the username and password to discover, explore, and take away anything from that particular account. So this is what phishing can happen. Similarly, if you look at it, many of us will be buying things from Amazon, and there are something like there are something like Amazon accounts which looks very similar, but unfortunately they are not very similar. If you look very carefully, they have the same appearance as Amazon, but if you look very carefully, their name, the URL or the domain name, there'll be a small spelling mistake. Otherwise, the look and feel of Amazon looks very similar, and what we feel is, we feel that we are interacting with Amazon, and then we will enter our credentials, and then once we enter the credentials, the data is lost. And again, ICICI account. ICICI account is, ICICI is again, ICICI is um, uh, um, um, ICICI account is ICICI account is one such. ICICI account is one such. Just a minute. Sorry, I'll just take this call. I'm sorry. Just take. Yeah, I'm sorry about it. So, so then you have something like phishing. So this phishing is basically, again, if you look at this particular slide, or this site looks very similar to that of ICICI Bank, but on very close observation, you look at that this is not actually the actual site. Okay, so this is how the attackers will construct. This is how the attackers will make this particular site. Similarly, you have different sites, very similar kind of sites. Then you have something like a credit card scam fraud. So probably you might have heard about credit cards. Like for example, three people were held guilty in online credit scam by cybercrime investigation cell Pune. The credit card details were misused for approximately 100 people through online means for booking air tickets. So again, people will come out with very similar looking kind of website. It's called as PayPal. Very similar kind of looking, and then they ask you to enter the details, and then once you enter, so things they'll vanish with all the data. So similarly, again, you might have come across these kind of information saying that your credit card is locked. If you want to rectify it, or if you want to revive its service, you need to call or click the following link. So again, there are a lot of other things, like for example, SMS scams. SMS scams is something like the alleged mastermind behind 4 million SMS fraud that duped at least 50,000 people has been arrested, along with an associate, more than 2 months after the scam was unearthed. So this is something like an SMS scam. So probably we might have seen in the newspaper or in the website saying that you send SMS and earn money. So this is again a kind of a scam where you have to invest money initially, and you are promised that you'll be given something like 2 times or 3 times more than what you have invested. So this will never happen actually. So very similarly, you have something like an SMS scams. Then you have something like work from home scams. I think this is also kind of scams. Say for example, you might have seen this kind of an ad saying earn rupees 800 a daily and all that. So where actually this you have to invest. So the moment you click on this particular link, they'll say you invest, and once you invest something like 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, you'll be promised something like 5,000 rupees. But once you invest 1,000 and 2,000, that's it. You are after this particular site will not be visible again. And they will put some kind of a beautiful pictures saying that this is how these people or these ladies are earning money and all that. So this is basically a way to trick all the people who wants to work from home. And there is another case where we have something called cyber extortion. What is cyber extortion? Cyber extortion is something like extorting people through cyberspace. For example, city police arrested a 27-year-old man for cheating an Mumbai-based engineer, posing as a woman and stealing money from his bank account. So posing as a woman and stealing money from, this is called cyber extortion. And very similar cases, like again, somebody pretended like women and they tried to extort a lot of money. These are the cases that was actually reported in the newspaper, and that's how they are, that's included here. And cyber extortion again, some school receives a message saying that one of the student is with a bomb, so you need to pay something like this amount. So these are the examples of what is called as cyber extortion. Then there is something called sextortion. Sextortion has become very rampant in the online. So they say, I have your images, and if I'll send it to everybody in your school. So unless otherwise you pay something or whatever. So this is what we call as sextortion. And then there is something called international job racket. International job racket is something like, I think you might have come across many ads that says that, we will send it to you, there's a job in UAE or in UK. So you need to fill all this and you need to pay something. These are some of the international job markets that we have. So there are cases that have been reported saying that, many cases that have been reported in the newspaper saying that, these kind of cases are fake, and they have duped as many as people as possible. Yeah, and very importantly, let's talk about something like social media. So till now, I think I've just given you a glance of different types of crime and the cases with respect to crime. Now we have started with something like social media. Social media, why? Because everybody is on social media. And when we are in social medias, we should be aware of the different types of issues or threats that we are facing. First of all, we have something called cyberbullying. Then we have cyber identity theft. Somebody, pretending that he is Shah Rukh Khan and then trying to communicate with somebody else. Identity impersonation and dissemination of unwanted materials, fraud, etc. These are the things that are happening in social media. Now, before we actually, let me just focus on something like cyberbullying here. So in order to understand bullying, we need to know what exactly is cyberbullying. In order to understand what is cyberbullying, we need to understand what is bullying. So what is bullying? So bullying is basically, use of force, threat, or coercion to abuse, intimidate, or aggressively dominate others. So that is the definition of bullying. So where does it occur? Actually, it occurs everywhere. It occurs everywhere. An elderly woman is threatened verbally by her son with whom she lives, and she is afraid for her safety and does not report because of a family tie that binds them. So an elder, I think we have reported, or we have read in the newspaper that, an elderly woman or an elderly person is abused by their own son and daughter, right? So these are some kind of, it's a kind of bullying actually. Next, we have college. Bullying can happen in college. A girl announces that a boyfriend was stolen by another girl, and everybody is turned against her. So that's kind of a bullying. Then you have something like neighborhood. So, somebody, say, for example, somebody say, this is not actually in India, but still, so, somebody comes from a different place to one particular neighbor, and the neighbors are not happy with that particular the new tenant or new neighbor. So then there is some kind of insults that can be hurled at those neighbors. So that kind of is also happening. That's also a kind of bullying. So when we talk about bullying, there are some effects to bullying. The effects is basically one, definitely depression and anxiety, and the feeling of sadness, loneliness, changes in the sleeping and eating patterns, loss of interest, and all this are the effects of what is known as bullying. At the same time, there are severe health issues. And when we talk about students, yeah, definitely decreased academic achievements. So, sometimes low marks, sometimes drop out from the schools as well. In 12 out of 15 school shootings cases in US, because in the US we are reading and get to listen to number of shootings that is happening in US. It's according to a study, 12 out of 15 shooting cases, bullying was one of the histories. Okay, so many of them, students were bullied. They actually ended up in, shooting many of their fellow students. And students accused in Washington schooling, in one of the cases, blamed bullying. So one of the guy was this. He was actually bullied, and ultimately he was so depressed that he took the matter in his own hand, and he actually went on a shooting spree. Now, when we talk about something like bullying, what are the features of a bully victim? A victim is something like, basically he will be having some kind of injuries, and his books and clothes and everything would be, lost or destroyed. He will complain of frequent headaches and stomach aches, and he will have some kind of changing in heating habits, and he will not be, heating regularly. And sometimes he will be overeating because of anxiety, depressions. He'll be overeating, and difficulty in sleeping, and sometimes nightmares, declining grades, loss of interest, and not wanting to work, and so on. So sudden loss of friends or avoidance of social situations, and so on. Feeling of helplessness and low self-esteem, and destructive behavior such as running away from home, harming themselves, or talking about suicide. These are some of the features of a victim. What about the bully? So he's basically, he gets into physical or verbal fights, and you'll have friends who are bullying others, very aggressive, and is always sent out of schools, or he will have unexplained extra money or new belongings, will always blame others for the problems. He will not expect responsibilities. Bullying related to race and religions. Yes, there have been many cases of bullying related to race and religion because of their religion. It could be a Sikh boy wearing the turban. It could be a Jewish wearing that skull cap, or it could be based on terrorism, Al Qaeda, or so on. It could be based on religion. It could be based on race. It could be based on sexuality. It could be based on disability. Students or children with autism or stammerings, they are frequently bullied in schools and colleges. So having got to know what exactly is bullying, let's get into something like cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is something like, all the bullying that we know somehow is also happening in the case of cyberspace. We are using something like technology. Rapid usage of internet and cell phones have become what is known as has given a place for bullying. So let me just take a few cases here. Case number one, Jessica. These are the cases that were reported in the literature. Jessica was a college girl who committed suicide after sexting, that is, sending a nude picture of herself to a boyfriend. But when they broke up, actually, the boyfriend sent that particular picture to everybody. So that is where she committed actually suicide. Case number one. Case number two. Facebook, one woman says that she's a regular Facebook user, and there are some female users who are putting all kind of things about her in their walls. And she has tried to complain to Facebook about this, but Facebook is not doing anything. Okay, this is also a kind of bullying. If somebody is trying to post nasty things about me in a particular platform. Case number three. Somebody is trying to threaten somebody, saying that he would kill somebody. So this is also a kind of bullying. So in this case, a 12-year-old boy actually reported this. Now, what is this cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is basically an aggressive, intentional act carried by a group or an individual using an electronic forms of contact repeatedly and over time against a victim who cannot easily defend him or herself. Okay, so any sort of bullying is condemnable, but what makes cyberbullying more dangerous is it is because the bully is actually non-existent. He is somewhere virtual than the physical. Physical, at least you can look at a person and then that this is the person who's bullying. But in the cyberbullying, the people are behind and they are in the virtual world, and you do not know who is actually bullying you. So cyberbullying is one form of extreme cyber aggression carried out in the electronic form against a person who cannot easily defend himself or herself. So it has three features. One, an act of aggression online, imbalance of power between individuals involved, and it is repeated over time. Cyberbullying can be direct or indirect. Direct refers to action in which the victim is directly involved. For example, it could be sending a virus, or it could be excluding, it could be sending a virus, or it could be insulting somebody, or it could be somebody threatening. That could be direct. Indirect can be something like something happening without somebody's knowledge. Say, for example, publishing about somebody in some group, creating a hate page without somebody's knowledge, or somebody thrown out of the group without their knowledge. All these contribute to what is known as indirect cyberbullying. Now, according to the survey published in literature, nearly 43% of the kids are bullied online. 1 in 4 says it happens more than once. 70% of students report seeing frequent bullying online. 80% says teens use cell phone, making it the most common form of or medium for cyberbullying. 81% of the young people think bullying online is easier to get away than bullying in person. They think, because of the virtual world. 90% of the teens who have seen social media bullying say they have ignored it. But 90% they say that they have seen that bullying is existing and rampant. 84% say that others tell cyberbullies to stop. Only 1 in 10 victims will inform their parents or the trusted adults about the abuse. Girls are no better. Girls are also as likely as boys to be the victims, as well as to be the people or the persons contributing to bullying. 58% of the kids admit that someone has said hurtful things to them online, and more than 4 out of 10 says it has happened more than once. Bullying victims are 2 to 9 times more likely to consider committing suicide. So 90% of the teens agree that they have ignored the cyberbullying, while some of them have taken steps to stop bullying. And what is important, India ranks at number 3 in the list of online bullying cases. 70% of the cyberbullying activities happen over Facebook. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram are the most popular networks for cyberbullying. So there are different types of cyberbullying actually. Okay, I'll not be going through each of them, but one of them is flooding. The other one is called as impersonation. The third one is flaming, trolling, harassment, cyber stalking, denigration. These are the different forms. What are the features of a cyberbullying victim? The features of the cyberbullying victim is unexpectedly stops using the devices, appears to be very nervous, jumpy when using the devices, appears uneasy when about being at school or outside, appears to be angry, depressed, or frustrated after texting, chatting, or using social media or gaming, avoids discussion about their activities online. Features of cyberbullying: quickly switches screens or hides their devices, use their device at all hours of night, get unusually upset if they can't use the devices, avoids discussion about what they are doing online, uses multiple online accounts, be always mindful about what you post, things, you know, and all these things. How do we stop actually the cyberbullying? In order to stop cyberbullying, do not respond to or retaliate, actually. Keep the evidences very safe. Reach out for help. Use technology. Protect your account safe. Keep your social profile and interaction safe. Prevention of cybercrime. So in order to prevent the cybercrime, we need to avoid disclosing any information pertaining to oneself. Say, for example, every time, whenever this has become a common trend. Whenever we are visiting different places, we post different images in the social media sites. And that could be a good indicator that you are not in station, right? So you should be very careful in disclosing what information you want to present. Always avoid sending photographs online, particularly to strangers and chat friends, as there have been incidents of misuse of photographs. Always use the latest and update antivirus softwares to guard against virus attacks. Always keep backup of volume so that one may not suffer data loss in case of virus contaminations. Never send your credit card numbers to any site that is not secure to guard against frauds. Always keep a watch on sites that your children are accessing to prevent any kind of harassments or deprivation in children. It is better to use a security program that gives control over cookies. Website owners should watch traffic and check any irregularity on the site. Use of firewalls may be very, very beneficial. Web servers running public sites may be should be kept physically separate from the internal network. Also, it should have operating system that is up-to-date antivirus and anti-spyware. Use of pop-up advertiser blockers, strong passwords, secure wireless networks, reputable websites and mobile applications. Try to get informations or download from reputable websites and mobile applications. Avoid clicking on unexpected or unfamiliar links. Challenges, yes. Hardware and software issues could be a challenge. Lack of awareness of the cybercrime can be a challenge. Laws are actually, there are different laws that are actually being made. So we don't have all the laws in place as of now, as against the conventional crime. Jurisdiction issues, yes. Cyber is something like a virtual world. Anybody can be in India and try to do some kind of damage in US. So there is this jurisdiction issues. And the other one challenge is hesitation to report offenses. Majority of them feel embarrassed to report offenses. That is also one of the challenges. And most importantly, training can be one of the challenges, to be one of the challenges with respect to cyber security or cybercrime. Now, quickly going on to the research avenues. Now, Government of India has listed the broad research areas, like, for example, information security. When we talk about information security, you have computer network security, application security, web service security, and so on. And when we talk about digital services, like, for example, web services, internet banking, e-banking, postal services, these are the different services that Government of India is offering to the citizens. So therefore, a lot of research is, these are potential research avenues in order to secure these services. Similarly, you have something like protection of digital services, protection of online services, internet banking, digital forensics, and investigations. These are some of the the other areas or other research topics that come under this. So these are some of the areas that Government of India has listed as the broad research areas that one can work in order to contribute to the proper working of these services. And again, in literature, people have also classified the cybersecurity, into the four domains. One is the physical domain, the information domain, the cognitive domain, the social domain. When we talk about physical domain, yes, it's all building up things like, for example, smart cities, smart cars, smart house, power plants, smart grids, and all that. So people are working on that. Information domain, yes, there's a lot of information, so we need effective ways to monitor, store, and visualize those informations. When we talk about cognitive domain, yes, artificial intelligence is making things is making things more and more what do you call as wonderful, because it's not only employed in all the areas, it could be employed even in the area of cybersecurity. So for example, analyzing massive quantity of data, and also to speed up the responses. And then you have something called the social domain. Social domain is where people talk about the policies, people talk about the preparedness of the organization when it comes to cyber threat, cyber attacks, and so on, right? So these are the different categories where people are working, basically physical domain, the information domain, and the cognitive domain, and the social domain. So, Kaspersky has identified that cyberbullying is the cyber crime of the century. So this is one of the big statement that Kaspersky has made. So cyberbullying is one of the major crime, because everybody is there. And at the same time, one of the different version of cyberbullying is what we call as the hate speech. So many of them, probably you would have noticed in social media, we have something called the hate speech. So hate speech is something like, that's quite common now in the social media. So this is also one of the versions of what is called as the cyberbullying. So this is also one of the research areas that people are working on. Now, let's quickly go on the different areas. Now, traditionally, when we talk about cybersecurity, the common research areas that people focus on is cryptographic research, systems and network security research, mobile security, cloud security, use of blockchains, and vulnerability detections. These are the common areas where people are working, and these areas are the areas that are trying to address cybersecurity. But in addition to this, we have something else as well. For example, when you talk about social networking sites, when you talk about the contents that are generated in social network, that also can give rise to what is known as cyber crime, and that crime needs to be protected against, right? So that gives you to a different way, the different research view to protect what is known as the cyber contents. So in addition to these active, like for example, cryptography, mobile security, cloud security, you have passive research that is taking place with respect to cyber security in terms of, say, for example, cyberbullying detection, in terms of hate speech detection, in terms of troll detection, in terms of sarcasm detection. And again, this could be extended to what is known as cross-lingual abusive detection, multimodal abuse detection, or coming out with what is known as an human-computer interaction for abuse detection, language detections, and so on. So these are the areas where most of the people can contribute to work on what is known as the cyber security. If at all, they are not interested to work on explicit areas such as cryptography or network securities. These are the other areas that people can contribute to prevent some kind of hate speech and to prevent some kind of cyberbullying that is very rampant in what is known as the cyberspace. Okay, so just to conclude, okay, so I've taken much of your time. Just to conclude, Internet has enabled interconnection of people and resources that are beneficial to the society in many ways. At the same time, it has opened up a virtual world for people to carry out their activities and to be anonymous. Every day, there have been different forms of issues faced by the cyber world, and this has resulted in loss in terms of life and property to individuals and organizations and governments. So therefore, there is a strong need to address these issues related to cybercrime and cyber threats through research and development, government policies, collaboration with industries and governments, training, and main important thing is education through societal outreach programs. So with this, I end my presentation, and I'm very thankful for the VVCE Computer Science Department for giving me an opportunity to present my view on cyber security, cyber crime, and research avenues in cyber crime and cyber security. Thank you.
So there are one question is there, sir.
Please, yeah.
It's showing, sir. Sir, does the digital forensics also be considered under any cyber crimes?
Yeah, digital forgery is also definitely one of the attribute of cybercrime. Yes, definitely. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the nice session.
Yeah, thank you.